Who is that?
Writer, director and actor Robbie Banfitch brings us The OUTWATERS, an experimental found footage horror movie. Now, the story is as follows. We follow four friends as they travel out to the Mojave Desert for a trip. One of the friends, this woman has lost her mother, and they think they want to record like a music video or something. So there's four of them go kind of, you know, for a bit of a soul search in the desert. And when they are there, they start to discover some strange phenomena. When they go to bed of a night, there is strange sounds, strange lights in the sky. It almost feels like the sky's ripping into and things like this. And we don't quite know what's going on, but once we get to kind of the second half of the movie, things turn rather bloody, you might say. Now, what will happen? You have to watch the movie and find out if you can make head notes out of it. So let's talk about what I think worked in this movie. So this movie is definitely going for an air of mystery. It doesn't really kind of tell you what's kind of going on for a good portion of the movie, really. And even then, you know, there is some, I would say, questions that are left unanswered with this one. But there is a sense of, you know, the unknown. And I think that's kind of the direction here that they were trying to kind of go for is kind of the great unknown. What is out there? What are these kind of strange phenomena? And you're experiencing it the same time as obviously these kind of characters. So we obviously don't know any more than they do, if that makes sense. So there is that kind of like an interesting idea of this sort of phenomena, and we are discovering at least partly what's going on at the same time of our kind of our protagonists, our kind of group of you know, campers and stuff. I will say I think the acting was reasonably strong here. There's not actually tons of dialogue, if we're being honest. There's mainly lots of screaming and whimpers, particularly in the kind of the second half here. But I didn't think the acting that was you could kind of see more overtly on screen was bad. I think it was very reasonable here. And if you're a kind of a bit of a gore hound, this movie is surprisingly gory in the second half, actually. And I will say, I think the bloody effects are done to a good standard and kind of look kind of realistic. I feel also the movie is trying to, and I will say I don't think it's successful in this, but it's trying to be, I think, like a true found footage movie in the fact that, you know, there's lots of kind of footage which is the floor, blank spaces and things like that. That's meant to be kind of like, you know, what you would do what would happen in these situations. We'll come on to that again. But it's trying to have I think, a realistic aesthetic in kind of regards to the kind of the found footage movie. And the idea is intriguing, I will say that. But what doesn't work? Boy, this movie was a chore to sit through, I am not going to lie. This movie really is a film of two halves, to be honest. The first half, it felt like you're watching someone's vacation video, to be honest, because I really feel like it's just lots of kind of like random stuff on camera for a bunch of people that you don't know. So imagine sitting down and go, let's check out someone's kind of like footage that they've taken in the desert who I don't know, and I'll watch that for 45 minutes. How does that sound? Does that sound like a thrilling way to spend your time? No, because it isn't. I felt the characterization of these people were quite poor. I mean, we get a little bit about kind of our blonde girl who's like the singer and stuff, and we get her mum's died and stuff, but not much really. I never really felt like I got to know the personalities of these kind of characters and things like that. And so there's that. The whole aesthetic here of somewhat of a realistic portrayal of found footage is undercut by, I think, a few kind of like errors in judgment. For example, really before all the kind of too much kind of craziness stuff happens, we'll get sequences where, you know, we have our kind of bohemian kind of like 30-somethings kind of swaying around with their arms, and there's cuts, so we can obviously see there's different kind of angles, different kind of like edits within that kind of film. But then there's this kind of like sound that's kind of playing consistently, which wouldn't happen if there's cuts in the film and things like that. You would hear cuts in the audio, you know, because the sound's not a constant sound. It's kind of changing and stuff, so it doesn't make sense audio-wise. That doesn't really make sense with what you're seeing on screen, because you're watching edits on the screen, but we're having a consistent audio and things like that. So it does kind of portray the found footage. Arguably as well, you know, half of this stuff is like, why would you be filming this stuff? There's a sequence, for example, as well, without spoiling anything, why wouldn't you be using a light to kind of illuminate a particular area that you're looking at, which didn't really make sense to me. And just generally, there's kind of like lots of reasons here why they wouldn't really be filming. And what we do see is a lot of like the ground, the dark, and things like that. So if you don't like films where there's lots of kind of shaky cam and you're just kind of watching blurry kind of like movements and things like that, you ain't gonna like this one, because there's a hell of a lot of it in this film. This isn't a movie which is particularly filmed in a user-friendly way. Granted, like, I understand they're trying to go for a authentic kind of found footage feel, although I don't feel they totally succeed in that. But it does make it for a kind of a you know, a difficult watch in times, because you kind of it's hard to kind of really understand what you're seeing a lot of the time. There is long sequences where you are just seeing a black screen sometimes. Sometimes it's a bit of rock, sometimes it might be some wildlife. It's just a lot really like, oh yeah, it's totally experimental, and it's just ultimately kind of dull. I mean, there is some interesting elements here. There's some interesting ideas, and like I said, visually speaking, it does get a little bit kind of, I guess, shocking, because you're seeing so much kind of mundane stuff, and then bam, you'll see some kind of like some gore. But as a narrative, man, it was a tough watch. This one, you know, I was like, ugh. I don't know if I can finish it, but it wasn't really an interesting film to me. I mean, I've heard this kind of compared to the Skinner Inc. Now, I haven't seen that, but I've heard what it's kind of like, and I guess it's a fair comparison from what I understand about that movie. So, if you didn't like Skinner Inc., then you probably won't like this one, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's kind of, it was a bit of a rough watch. Some interesting ideas, some fairly well done gore, but boy, was that a tough watch. How to rate this? I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. I really didn't enjoy this one. You know, there's some good elements here, but it just didn't come together. It's a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.